A year after Elizabeth and her sons helped rebuild the life of the man who once left her behind. The same man who walked away 27 years ago, disappearing like a shadow the moment she needed him most. Now he stood in her home again. He dropped to his knees. "Thank you," he said, voice trembling. "Mother of Kings, thank you for changing my life." Elizabeth looked at him, not with anger, not with pain, but with peace. She touched his shoulder gently. "I didn't do anything for you," she whispered. "God did. All the praise goes to him." Because life isn't about what we want or how hard we try. It's about mercy. It's about someone choosing to lift you up when you're too broken to stand. That night, as she lay in bed, Elizabeth closed her eyes and let the memories come. Not the pain of being left behind, but the love they once shared. The laughter, the dreams, the moments that made her believe in him before he disappeared. And now, after all these years, she finally found peace. That night, as Elizabeth drifted off to sleep, something deep within her heart awakened. She fell into a dream. Not just any dream, but a vivid journey through time. It was like watching a movie of her life with Samuel. Only this time, she wasn't remembering the pain. She saw them again, young, in love, full of hope. She dreamed of the day they met, how his smile made her forget everything else. She dreamed of the sacrifices he made, such as selling everything he had to make sure she graduated from school, skipping meals so she could eat, working late just to keep her dreams alive. She dreamed of the moment he gave her the greatest gift anyone could give, his kidney. 35 years ago, when illness nearly took her life, he didn't hesitate. He begged the doctors to take whatever they needed from him, just to save her. She dreamed of him selling his father's land, not for himself, not for comfort, but to pay her hospital bills without telling her until months later. She dreamed of their wedding, the joy, the tears, the promises whispered under the stars. And then their honeymoon. Two souls wrapped in love, believing they would face every storm together. One after another, the memories came, raw, real, beautiful. It was as if her heart was finally ready to remember. Not just the hurt, but the love that came before it. And for the first time in years, it was already 10 a.m. and Elizabeth was still asleep. Her servants were deeply worried. They knocked on her door repeatedly, calling out to her, but there was no response. Growing more concerned by the minute, they called Elizabeth's two eldest sons, David and Michael. Though the brothers lived in different towns, they both answered right away. The servants explained the situation, and the worry in their voices matched what David and Michael were feeling. Without delay, David gave instructions. He told the gatekeeper and driver to break into her room to check on her. As soon as the call ended, David ordered his driver to take him to the nearest airport so he could catch a flight to his mother's house. Back at Elizabeth's house, the gatekeeper and driver were preparing to force the door open when suddenly Elizabeth woke up with a jolt. She looked at the clock. It was 11:50 a.m. Still dazed, she gasped loudly, "Jesus, what happened to me?" When she picked up her phone, Elizabeth was stunned to see more than 50 missed calls and messages from her 5 sons and their wives. Tears filled her eyes as she held the phone tightly. Just then, David called again, and this time she answered. Hearing her voice brought a wave of relief to him. "Mommy," he said, his voice trembling with emotion, "what happened? You scared us so much, I almost lost my mind." Elizabeth explained that she had just been sleeping deeply and only realized the time when she woke up. Shocked at how late it was and at all the missed calls, David sighed deeply before speaking again. "I'm just so thankful to God for your life, Mummy. Everyone was worried sick. As a matter of fact, I was on my way to the airport to book a flight to come to you when you finally answered." As she spoke with David, the other 4 sons and their wives were still calling non-stop. When she finally connected with Michael, he told her he was already at the airport, trying to secure a flight to be with her. After speaking with all of them and calming their fears, Elizabeth sat quietly, finally alone. Her heart was still stirred. She kept thinking about the dream, the memories, the love, the pain. It felt too real to be just a dream. "There's something deeper behind this," she whispered to herself. "This wasn't just an ordinary dream. I need to speak with my pastor." A few hours later, Elizabeth visited her pastor's home. She shared everything, the vivid dream, the emotions it stirred, and the strange way she had woken up so late in the day. As she spoke, the pastor listened intently. Then he prayed for her, deeply, passionately. When he finished, he looked at her with a serious expression. "Mama Elizabeth," he said, "you need to call your former husband, Samuel, and all 5 of your sons to come here. There is something important God wants to reveal, and it concerns all of you." Elizabeth listened carefully, her heart pounding. When she returned home, she called her sons immediately. Without hesitation, David and Michael, who were already in the country, agreed to come. Daniel, Benjamin, and Emmanuel, who were living abroad, begged to join the meeting through a video call because they didn't want to miss what God was about to do. Eventually, a date was set. The stage was ready and everyone could feel it. Something big was about to happen. The next morning, Elizabeth called for Samuel and told him about the meeting with the pastor. As he was about to leave, she gently asked a question that had been on her heart. "Samuel, after we separated, why did you never remarry?" He paused. A heavy sigh escaped his lips. Then he spoke. "I did get married," he said quietly. 5 years after I left you." He continued, voice thick with memory. "The woman gave birth to 2 children. For 10 years, I believed they were mine." His eyes dimmed as the pain returned. Then one of the children fell seriously ill and needed a blood transfusion. When I went to donate, the doctor told me my blood type didn't match the child's. He swallowed hard. That's when I decided to do a DNA test. The results came back. He looked down. I wasn't their biological father. Silence filled the space between them. "I was preparing to confront my wife," he went on, "when she struck me with a sickness so severe I nearly died." Elizabeth listened, heart sinking. "When I was hospitalized," Samuel continued, "she abandoned me. She sold everything, my properties, emptied my bank accounts, took all my documents, even my certificates, and disappeared with the children without a trace." His voice cracked. "I nearly lost my life in that hospital. And when I finally recovered, I had nothing. I was back at 0. He looked into Elizabeth's eyes. "I struggled for years. Every job I tried failed. Without my certificates, I couldn't find proper work. I was broken, alone, forgotten." He took a deep breath. "But today, I thank God from the bottom of my heart, because He brought me back to you, because He showed me mercy, and because you, the woman I once walked away from, became the reason I found hope again. I'm grateful to God," he whispered, "for showing me mercy, and for reconnecting me to you." Elizabeth listened quietly, her heart full of compassion. She looked at Samuel and said gently, "It's okay, Samuel. I'm just glad you're alive. All thanks and glory belong to God Almighty. He truly deserves all the praise." 3 days later, David and Michael arrived as planned for the meeting with the pastor. A few hours after that, Elizabeth, her 2 sons, and Samuel got into the car and made their way to the pastor's house. The time had come. Whatever God wanted to reveal, they were ready to hear it together. As the meeting began, Elizabeth's other 3 sons, Daniel, Benjamin, and Emmanuel, joined via Zoom from abroad. The room, both physical and virtual, was filled with anticipation. The pastor looked at Elizabeth and Samuel with deep reverence. "Madam Elizabeth, everything that happened between you and your husband was not by accident," he said. "It was all according to God's will. It was part of His divine plan." He continued gently, "Ma, sir, your purpose on earth was never about having children of your own blood. Your assignment was to raise these 5 boys, to turn them into the men they are today. That was your calling." He took a breath before revealing what shook them both to their core. "The reason God separated you for 27 years, the pastor went on, was because of something Samuel said one night, the night before he vanished." Elizabeth listened in stunned silence. "You had suggested adoption," the pastor explained. "You remember? After 7 years of marriage without children, you brought up the idea of adopting a boy and a girl." Samuel's eyes widened. "Mr. Samuel responded strongly," the pastor continued. He said, "God forbid. I will never raise someone else's children over my dead body. I want my own flesh and blood." A heavy silence fell over the room. That very statement, the pastor said, was why God had to separate you, because He knew if you had stayed together, Elizabeth would never have been able to fulfill her purpose. She would have tried to honor your words, and those 5 boys would have remained forgotten. Tears rolled down Elizabeth's face. Samuel dropped his head, overwhelmed. Everything, the pain, the loneliness, the separation, it wasn't random. It was preparation. For destiny, for purpose, for kings to rise. The pastor continued, his voice steady and full of revelation. When God saw that Samuel was becoming a stumbling block to the purpose he had for you, Elizabeth, he had to separate him from you. Not out of punishment, but protection. Protection of your destiny. He looked at both of them with deep compassion. God respected Samuel's choice, the pastor said, and allowed him to walk through life as he wished. But all the while, he was preparing you, giving you the space, the strength, and the opportunity to raise those 5 boys. He paused before delivering the final truth. Now God has brought you both back together because his will has been fulfilled. The goal was accomplished. Those 5 children who were once forgotten are now thriving because of you, Elizabeth. His tone softened. And now it's time for you two to continue the journey you began together so many years ago. A sacred silence filled the room. You were meant to be together, the pastor said. That's why neither of you remarried. That's why no one else could take the place of the other. The pastor opened his Bible and read Isaiah 55 from verse 8 to 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Elizabeth and Samuel sat in quiet awe. No blame, no shame, only understanding, only grace, only God who turns pain into purpose, who makes broken paths into highways of hope, and who in his perfect timing brings home what was lost. Samuel had been ignorant, the pastor continued. He didn't understand his purpose, why God created him. If he had known, he never would have made that one statement that led to 27 years of pain, struggle, and a miserable life. The man of God spoke with deep wisdom. Sometimes, he said, we don't realize the power of our words. One careless word can destroy lives. One wrong statement can change destinies. He looked straight at Samuel. We must be careful with what we say, especially when it comes to the plans of God. Because once spoken, those words can block blessings, delay purpose, and bring years of unnecessary suffering. Silence filled the room as everyone absorbed the truth. A powerful reminder echoed in their hearts. Be mindful of the words you speak, because a single word can open doors or shut them for a lifetime. Elizabeth, her 4 sons, and Samuel were all overcome with emotion. Tears flowed freely, not from pain, but from revelation. After a long moment of silence, broken only by soft sobs, Elizabeth finally spoke. That's why, she whispered, voice trembling with awe, I could never stop using the name Samuel as my surname. Even when he was gone, I couldn't let it go. She looked at her sons, the 5 kings she raised. And all my children carry the same name, she continued. Even when it didn't make sense, God was still writing his story through us. A deep hush fell over the room. Then she added softly, almost to herself, God truly works in mysterious ways. After that powerful moment, the pastor stepped forward. With prayer, with love, and with divine purpose, he officially reconciled the family that had been separated for over 27 years. A new chapter had begun, not just for Elizabeth and Samuel, but for the entire family God had always planned to reunite. A few months later, Elizabeth and Samuel remarried, not just as husband and wife, but as partners reborn through grace. Their 5 sons and their families gathered joyfully to celebrate, dancing, laughing, and honoring the love that had been restored. It wasn't just a wedding, it was a reunion of destiny. From that moment on, the family began experiencing massive breakthroughs like never before. Doors of favor swung wide open, opportunities poured in, blessings overflowed. Elizabeth and Samuel traveled together, worked together, and served together, touching lives wherever they went. They fed the hungry, comforted the lonely, supported orphans, and stood with widows, continuing the legacy of love that had always defined them. When Elizabeth turned 63, her life's work caught the attention of the nation. She was appointed by the federal government as the Minister of Humanitarian and Women's Affairs. in recognition of the countless lives she had lifted from poverty and despair. It was a moment of honor, not for power, but for purpose. A woman once broken by life, now leading at the highest level, still serving with the same heart that once opened its doors to 5 unwanted boys. And as the years passed, Elizabeth, Samuel, and their growing family lived together in happiness, health, and harmony. Surrounded by grandchildren, loved by many, inspiring all. Your pain is not your end. It could be the setup for your greatest purpose. Elizabeth was once broken, abandoned, and childless. But from that pain came a legacy. 5 boys raised into kings, countless lives changed, and a nation inspired. Your deepest wounds can become your highest calling. The words you speak have power. They can build or destroy destinies. Samuel's careless words cost him 27 years of joy, peace, and family. Be mindful of what you say, especially about your future, because words shape worlds. God's plans are higher than our understanding, but they're always good. What seemed like abandonment was actually divine preparation. What felt like rejection was redirection toward destiny. Trust God even when you don't understand the path. True kindness never goes unnoticed. The world may not see it, but heaven always rewards it. Elizabeth spent years quietly serving others, raising 5 unwanted boys, feeding hungry children, forgiving a broken man, and giving without expecting anything in return. She didn't do it for recognition. She didn't serve for applause. She gave because her heart was full of love. And yet, God honored her, not with riches alone, but with influence. Not with fame, but with favor. Not with titles, but with a purpose far greater than she imagined. Elizabeth's life teaches us that when you live to lift others, the world will eventually rise to meet you. Not because you demanded it, but because you deserved it. Mercy changes more lives than judgment ever could. Elizabeth forgave, loved, and restored instead of holding on to bitterness. Her mercy didn't just heal Samuel, it transformed generations. Legacy is not about blood, it's about impact. Elizabeth didn't give birth to kings. She raised them. She fed the hungry, lifted the poor, and served the forgotten. That's the truest kind of legacy, one built on love and service. If this story moved your heart, changed your perspective, or gave you hope, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button, drop a comment with your favorite moment, share this video with someone who needs strength today, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more life-changing stories like this one. Because sometimes the strongest among us aren't those born into greatness. They're the ones who rise through pain and choose love anyway. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed. Stay inspired. Until next time.
If you enjoyed this story, I'm certain you'll enjoy the next one showing on your screen right now. Please click on the thumbnail to watch the next story. I'd appreciate your support. Like this video, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to my channel. See you in my next story. Bye.